Denis Villeneuve has already begun production on the third Dune, which will grandly conclude his trilogy and his involvement in this franchise. After this, the director will take on the new James Bond, which, according to preliminary information, is also set to be released in 2026. For Dune, this means that Villeneuve will not be directing the planned fourth installment, which it seems will be postponed for now. Therefore, the plot of the third part will differ from the book to provide a logical conclusion for the heroes we know. Meanwhile, Jason Momoa is returning to the project, and the cast has been expanded to include Robert Pattinson. As you can see, we have plenty to discuss, which is exactly what we'll do in the next few minutes. Let's start with a photo that Villeneuve shared on the first day of filming, accompanied by a quote from the book on Warner Bros. Social media. "We were shown Arrakis just as we've seen it before." The photo was likely taken either in the Wadi Rum Desert in Jordan or at the Liwa Oasis in Abu Dhabi, where scenes for the second film were shot. The quote accompanying the image about a journey to a land where we walk without leaving tracks is taken directly from the book Dune Messiah. The phrase is used to describe Paul Atreides' spiritual transformation and his ascent to a near-prophetic state. It signifies a state beyond physical presence, where a person's actions and influence transcend the limitations of the material world. The start of production on the third Dune means everything is on schedule, as filming was supposed to begin in the summer of 2025. If production takes about 5 months, as it did with the second part, the film should be completed around November. In that case, the film's release is expected about a year later, in December of 2026. As for the title, the third part has not been subtitled Dune Messiah, but is simply called Dune Part 3. Recall that the first two films adapted Frank Herbert's debut novel, splitting it into 2 parts. As a result, they were somewhat uneven, with the second film being more event-packed than the first. The new installment will bring the second book, Dune Messiah, to the big screen. In total, the main book series consists of 6 parts, but there has been no talk of adapting the entire cycle yet. However, given that the third film isn't called Dune Messiah, Villeneuve might borrow some elements from Children of Dune, which is the author's third book. Initially, the studio planned to adapt Frank Herbert's first trilogy. However, during production, the director convinced the executives that audiences first needed to be introduced to the great houses and a large cast of characters. That's why the first book was split. Then, when it became clear that the Dune adaptation was not only making money but also winning Oscars, a course was set for 2 more films. However, it is now known that Villeneuve will be taking on the Bond franchise once he finishes production on the third film. This means the studio has 2 possible scenarios. The first is to combine the books Dune Messiah and Children of Dune into one film, allowing the director to finish the book trilogy in his signature style. There is even some precedent for this, as they were often published under one cover as a single cohesive novel. It was also announced that Ida Brooke and Nakoa Wolf Momoa will play Paul and Chani's children in the third film, that is, Ghanima and Leto II, respectively. However, there is an oddity here related to the actors' ages. Both are around 16 years old, which is significantly older than they were in the book Dune Messiah. This means Leto and Ghanima will already be adults, which aligns with later books. This is another argument in favor of Children of Dune also being incorporated into Villeneuve's upcoming film, unless of course they are cast in one of Paul's visions, as was the case with Anya Taylor-Joy in the second part. The second option is to hire another director to helm a full adaptation of Children of Dune and subsequent books, should it be successful. There were even rumors that the studio was in talks with Gareth Edwards to have him start working on Frank Herbert's universe after Jurassic World. However, this is not officially confirmed information, so we won't get ahead of ourselves. But what is certain is that Warner Bros. Is unlikely to want to stop at the third film. The studio is already expanding the franchise with the series Dune Prophecy, which has been renewed for a second season. Therefore, both options are entirely viable, and with or without Villeneuve, Dune will continue to develop. By the way, Dune Part 3 seems set to be Denis Villeneuve's most ambitious work to date, because it will be shot entirely on ultra-high-resolution cameras. This was recently revealed by the company Richard Gelfond. A similar technique was previously used only by Christopher Nolan in the recent Oppenheimer, because while these cameras provide high-quality images, they are also very bulky and noisy. Using them for the entire duration of a project, especially in the desert, is very costly. But it seems the studio is confident in the success of the third Dune, giving the director carte blanche to use this expensive equipment. At the very least, the image will now be maximally sharp and detailed, which given Villeneuve's shooting style, can be called a huge plus. The film's plot will unfold after the start of Paul Atreides' Holy War, which began at the end of Dune Part 2. In the book, the events take place 12 years after Paul becomes emperor. Although his theocratic regime is sowing destruction across the galaxy, his visions convince him that this is the best outcome for humanity. However, the Emperor's actions involving genocide have led even the Bene Gesserit Order and several other organizations to plot his overthrow. The story itself follows Paul's attempts to hold on to power as his control over the galaxy literally slips through his fingers. And this is where the serious political undertones and Game of Thrones-style conspiracies in the struggle for power really begin. New players emerge, defectors, traitors, and masterful manipulators. At the same time, the world and lore of the franchise expand significantly, going far beyond just a few planets. Meanwhile, an expanded cast for the sequel has been announced, filled with even more A-list stars. Given the events of Frank Herbert's novel, Dune will introduce several new allies and enemies of Emperor Paul Atreides. Some characters probably won't stay in the story for long, as even in the previous films, many heroes appeared and disappeared quite quickly. However, there are those who will be present in the franchise for a long time, if it continues. Not long ago, it was announced that Robert Pattinson might join the cast. Negotiations are currently in their final stages. The director has also stated that he specifically envisions him in the role of the antagonist. Now, no one doubts that everything will work out, so Robert will play Citale, who is called different things in various translations. The conspiracy to destroy Paul and his family will be carried out with his help. Citale is a very powerful and cunning villain, capable of shape-shifting and embodying different roles. Considering Pattinson's resume includes roles ranging from a handsome vampire to a brutal Batman, he should pull this off quite easily. Citale also skillfully manipulates the protagonist, promising to bring his loved ones back to life as Golas. These are something like clones, grown from the genetic material of a deceased being. This is precisely how Jason Momoa is set to return in the third part. His character, Duncan Idaho, was killed by Imperial Sardaukar while protecting the Atreides back in the first film. However, this will not be the same character. The Bene Tleilaxu Order will create his clone under the name Height, and he will be gifted to Paul to weaken his resolve to rule the Imperium. Naturally, there will be an emotional conflict here due to the connection to the past, and a grand conspiracy with a surprising conclusion. But overall, Hate will play a key role in the final battle between Paul and the rebels, as well as in the fate of House Atreides. Therefore, Jason Momoa's role will be significantly larger than before. Another new character who will have a significant place in the new film is the Spacing Guild navigator Edric. He is a human who has mutated from exposure to the spice and gained the ability to fold space for interstellar travel. He will also be a participant in the conspiracy to destroy House Atreides and will become the film's second antagonist. Given that there aren't many alien-like creatures in Denis Villeneuve's version, it will be interesting to see how Edric is depicted on the big screen. Additionally, as we recall, Anya Taylor-Joy made her debut in Dune Part 2, playing the adult version of Alia Atreides. Some fans found this move strange, as her character had not yet been born. In the book series, Alia remains a child for some time after birth, and is not immediately presented to readers as an adult. Villeneuve added the vision to, on one hand, show the audience who the protagonist is communicating with, and on the other, to set up things for the future. Therefore, it's logical that Anya Taylor-Joy should reprise her role in the upcoming sequel. Naturally, the franchise's main trio has already begun filming. Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, and Florence Pugh will take center stage in the film, as their story arc is at the core of the conflict. Princess Irulan will become Paul's lawful wife because he needs to hold on to power by any means necessary. Meanwhile, his relationship with Chani, who left at the end of the second film, is not severed. And it is this love triangle that will provoke the conspiracy. As you can see, the upcoming Dune is poised to make a lot of noise with its scale, star power, and intricate plot. And Denis Villeneuve promises to deliver an epic finale to his saga, both technically and in terms of story. Whether or not there will be a sequel will only be determined by the film's box office performance. Be sure to share in the comments what you expect from the third part, and if there's any point in continuing filming after Children of Dune. That's all for today, folks. We'll see you in new videos very soon.